All right, guys, so good afternoon, morning, evening, whatever time you're watching this video. We're going to be talking about absolute values, which is your favorite topic, I'm sure by now. Remember, guys, absolute value is just your distance from zero. So, the absolute value of x or whatever is, you know, it's distance from zero. Distance from zero. Okay. Now, when we talk about distance, is never expressed negatively, right? If I go to St. George, which is like 300 miles away, and then I come back to where I started, did I suddenly go 0 miles? I didn't take away the miles that I traveled, right? I still traveled 300 miles there, and I traveled 300 miles back. So it's 600. We don't ever express things in distance negatively. So when we talk about absolute values, the absolute value of a number is always expressed positively. Now, there is an issue that pops up from that. So let's say I'm on a number line, and here's 0, right? Here's 2. How far away is 0 or 2 from 0? It's 2 spots away. So its distance would be 2. But then if we look at -2, it is 2 spots away as well. So it would also have an absolute value of 2. So when we have a variable inside an absolute value, which is an unknown, we have to solve for both possibilities because both of those numbers have the same absolute value, which is why when we're solving absolute value equations, here are our steps that we have to follow. Our first rule is to get the absolute value all by itself. Now today, since we're just focusing on the operations inside the absolute value, all of these problems are already going to be by itself. So you don't have to worry about doing that today. But what you are going to need to do, and this is the step that everybody tries to skip, is to split it into two equations. Because inside that absolute value, it could equal a positive number or it could equal a negative number, but you don't know which because all you're seeing is what the absolute value is equal to, which is positive. So you have to solve for both possibilities. So you're going to actually have to split it into two equations. Now, a lot of students are going to get stuck in this trap where they solve it and then they just make that answer negative. And that works like 10% of the time. But most of the time, you're going to get that second answer wrong. So trust me, you need to split it into the two equations, the positive and negative possibility. I'm going to show you what that means, and then you just solve both equations. So let's start here. We're going to look at number 8 on our worksheets. Now, again, this absolute value is already by itself. So our first thing we're going to do, since we don't need to move anything away from it, is to split this into two different equations. Since this is the absolute value of 11v equals 44, inside this absolute value, 11v could equal either a positive 44 or it could equal a negative 44. So we got to split it into two. 11v could equal a positive 44. And notice when I split it, I no longer have the absolute value because, again, I'm looking at what possibilities are inside of it now. I no longer need this absolute value. It just tells me this number right there. Okay? And then 11v could also equal negative 44. Those are the two possibilities that 11v could equal because they both have an absolute value of 44. And then to solve this, I would divide by 11 to each side, and v is going to equal either 4 or v is going to equal negative 4. And those would be my answers. Okay? Then let's look at some other examples here. So let's look at this one. So absolute value is all by itself. So this is where I split it into the two equations. 8b plus 10 could equal a positive 30. 8b plus 10 could equal 30. But 8b plus 10 could also equal a negative 30. So I've got to solve for both. So I had minus 10 from each side. Get rid of the acquaintance there. Gives me 8b is equal to 20. And 8b is equal to negative 40. Then I would divide by 8 to each side, and b could equal 20 divided by 8, I think it's 2.5. Yeah, 2.5, or b could equal negative 5. And that would be your answers. And you do get decimals today, just FYI. Okay, so not too tough, right? But if you had skipped this step, you would have gotten 2.5 and negative 2.5, which is wrong, right? You have to write out both equations. Do not try to keep that in your head. That's not worth it. Take the 2 seconds it takes to write it. Okay, let's look at this one. So this one, absolute value is all by itself. It's equal to negative 58. This is where I see one of the common mistakes. I see a lot of students try to split this. However, there is a problem with this problem, and it is right here. The absolute value is equal to a negative number. That's saying that the absolute value, or the distance of whatever 5n plus 7 is equal to, has a negative distance from 0. That is not possible. If you have your absolute value all by itself and it's equal to a negative number, this is a no solution. You can't actually solve that. So you don't have to split it. And I see students do that all the time. They split it and they still try to solve it and they get 2 answers. But really they can't, because this is not possible to begin with. Okay? So keep an eye out for that. There's several of those on this worksheet. This one is another one of our special cases. So 12 minus 4x, the absolute value, is equal to 0. So this is where we split it, right? 12 minus 4x could equal 0. But wait, what's the negative version of 0? How far away is 0 from 0? It's already on 0, right? There is actually only one answer here, because it's already at its distance from 0. So when you have this situation, you only have one solution. When the absolute value is equal to 0, there's only one answer, and it's whatever it is when it's equal to 0. So you would minus 12, which gives you negative 4x is equal to negative 12, divide by negative 4, and you get x is equal to 3. That'd be your one answer. There's only one answer on that one. Okay, let's look at another one. This one, absolute value of 3 plus 11x is equal to negative 107. Again, just kind of like what we did, this is equal to a negative number, right? Absolute value cannot equal a negative number. This is a no solution. Okay, no possible solution there. Let's look at this one. This one, absolute value of 10x minus 11 is equal to 21. So this is where we can split it. 10x minus 11 equals positive 21, or 10x minus 11 could equal a negative 21. It's basically just rewriting it with the number on the other side of the equal sign, positive, negative. And then you solve it, right? We'd add 11. That gives me 10x is equal to 32. And add 11 gives me 10x is equal to negative 10. Divide by 10. And x is going to either equal 3.2 or x is going to equal negative 1. And those would be your answers. Okay, not too tough, right? I'll do one more. So looking at this one, number 19, it's equal to 0. So how many solutions are there going to be? There's going to be one. Only one solution. So 3 minus 8k has to equal 0. And so you would minus 3 gives you negative 8k is equal to negative 3. Divide by negative 8. And k is going to equal 3 over 8. And you can just leave it like that. If you want to convert 3 over 8 to a decimal, you could also say 0.375. But that would be your answers. Okay? If you have any questions, ask your teachers. We're here to help. We want to help. And I'll see you guys out there.